I knew something was off the moment she lit the second candle. Wine glasses shimmered under the kitchen light. The aroma of garlic and roasted tomatoes filled the air, but none of it felt like love. It felt staged. Dana sat across from me, her blonde hair tucked behind one ear, lips curved into the kind of smile that made you second-guess yourself. The one that said, "I'm about to say something you won't like, and I want you to feel okay about it anyway." "I've been thinking," she said, her voice honeyed, casual. "Maybe it's time we evolve." I laughed. Because what else do you do when your wife of 8 years starts talking like a TED Talk? But she didn't laugh. She leaned forward, her fingers brushing the rim of her wine glass. "I'm serious, Jack. I've read so much about it. Couples reinventing their marriages. Finding new depth through freedom." I stared. Freedom. She reached into her bag. A manila folder. That should have been my first real clue. No one brings folders to dinner unless they're serving papers or plans. She slid the paper across the table. A mock contract. Terms highlighted. Mutual transparency. Emotional honesty. Weekly check-ins. A line at the bottom where both names would go. "It's just a trial," she added quickly. 30 days. A structured open marriage. Rules. Boundaries. Total honesty. I didn't touch the paper. I stared at it like it might detonate. "You're joking." Her smile faltered. "I'm not." I could still hear the pasta boiling behind me. Dana stood up, grabbed the colander like she hadn't just asked me to watch her have sex with someone else. She drained the spaghetti, steam rising like the last bit of sanity from the night. "You felt it too," she said over her shoulder. "We've been off." She wasn't wrong. Things had changed. The silences were longer. Sex, rarer. Sometimes she'd cry in the shower and tell me she was just tired. Other nights, she'd roll away from me in bed like I didn't exist. But I chalked it up to life. Stress. Parenthood. Work. The kind of quiet erosion that happens to every couple after a decade together. I didn't expect her to formalize our decay. "I don't want to lose us," she said, plates clinking now. "That's why I'm bringing this up. I want more. I want passion again. I want to feel wanted." Her words landed sharp, like paper cuts. Not deep, but stinging enough to bleed. "And this is your solution? Fucking someone else?" She flinched, but didn't look away. "It's not just about sex. It's about exploration. Reconnection. So many couples come out of it stronger." I laughed again, but it sounded different this time, a hollow. "And you already signed it." She nodded, and something in me cracked. She'd signed it before even bringing it to me. She'd made her choice and left me to play catch-up. "I thought it might scare you," she whispered, "but maybe it would excite you too." That night, I sat in my office long after she'd gone to bed. The contract lay open on the desk, her signature mocking me in perfect cursive. Dana Elaine Carter. Mine was just a blank line. A question mark. I poured a drink. Then another. And by the time the ice had melted and the room spun a little, I picked up the pen. I signed. But not because I agreed. Not because I believed in it. I signed because something inside me broke wide open. Some twisted voice in my head whispered, "If she wants to play this game, fine. Let's play." The next night, she took longer than usual getting ready. I sat on the couch, nursing a scotch that didn't burn nearly enough, watching her silhouette pass back and forth in the hallway mirror. Heels. Hair curled just right. A black dress that clung to her hips in a way I hadn't seen in years. When she sprayed perfume, 3 spritzes instead of her usual one, I knew the evening wasn't just about drinks and polite conversation. It was about sex. "Don't wait up," she said as she grabbed her clutch, her voice too light, like she was heading to a spa instead of someone else's bed. She paused at the door, as if expecting something from me, a last-ditch plea. Maybe. A protest. A reaction. I just raised my glass and said, "Have fun." And I meant it. Kind of. The door clicked shut. The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it was thick, like static in my chest. I didn't wait long. By the time her car disappeared down the street, I was already in front of my laptop, typing. Emails buzzed in from half-finished projects and nagging deadlines, but my fingers hovered. I couldn't focus on graphs and growth projections when I could still smell her perfume lingering in the hall. That's when the text came in. "Avery. Still working late? Want help?" I stared at the screen. Avery was my assistant. 26. Sharp. Gorgeous in that way that didn't beg for attention but always got it anyway. She'd started 3 months ago, and from day one, I noticed her, how she always stood a little too close, asked questions with just a hint of flirtation, and lingered when the office was empty. I'd never let it go further than subtle glances. A shared smirk. unspoken tension. But tonight? Tonight was different. Me. Sure. You up for it? The reply was instant. Avery. Be there in 30. And no, I'm not talking about spreadsheets. I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding harder than it had in months. Maybe longer. I left the door unlocked. As I waited, I poured another drink, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to feel something, anything other than the slow-burning humiliation of knowing my wife was undressing for another man. I tried not to imagine what they were doing, but my mind filled in the blanks anyway. Her legs wrapped around someone else. Her laugh in the dark. That familiar moan I hadn't heard in too long. It made something tighten in my chest. Not just jealousy. Not just anger. Possession. When the knock came, I didn't hesitate. I opened the door to find Avery standing there in jeans that hugged every curve, a white tank top clinging to her chest, and a leather jacket thrown over one shoulder. Her hair was tied back in that messy bun that somehow made her look even more dangerous. Wow, she said, stepping inside. You look like you've been through something. I smirked, closing the door behind her. You have no idea. She dropped her bag, her eyes scanning me slowly. You sure you want me here? You seem distracted. I'm not. I lied. She didn't press. She just followed me to the kitchen, poured herself a drink, and leaned against the counter. We talked kind of. About work. About annoying clients. About nothing. But the air between us wasn't small talk. It pulsed. She touched my wrist when I passed her a glass. Laughed a little too hard at a joke I didn't mean to make. At one point, I caught her watching me, really watching me, as I leaned against the wall. You ever get tired of pretending? She asked suddenly. I looked at her. Pretending what? Bet you're okay. The words hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. Every damn day. She nodded, stepped closer. Our glasses clinked softly on the counter as she set hers down. Then her fingers were on my shirt, toying with a button that didn't need adjusting. You want to stop pretending tonight? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not with words, anyway. Instead, I leaned in. Her breath caught just before our lips touched. The first kiss was slow, tentative, like we were both crossing a line we couldn't uncross. But the second? The second was hungry. She grabbed the back of my neck and pulled me closer, her body pressing into mine. Heat surged through me like a lit fuse. Months of frustration, loneliness, betrayal, it all surged to the surface. We didn't make it to the bedroom. Right there, on the couch where Dana and I used to binge TV and fall asleep half drunk on Merlot, I undid Avery's jeans while she tugged at my belt. Her skin was warm, electric under my hands. She kissed like she'd been waiting for this since the first day we met. And maybe she had. When I sank into her, there was no guilt. No second-guessing. Just this raw, desperate need to feel wanted again. To remind myself that I was still a man worth desiring. That I could still take something back. I don't remember falling asleep. I woke to the soft glow of the TV screen bouncing across the ceiling, a commercial playing some late-night insurance ad. My shirt was unbuttoned halfway, Avery's tank top tossed across the armrest. Her leg was draped over my thigh like she'd always belonged there, her skin warm against mine. For a second, I forgot about Dana. Forgot about the contract. Forgot about how this all started. Then Avery stirred, her fingers trailing across my chest like she was tracing invisible lines on a map she wanted to memorize. You didn't expect that to happen, did you? She whispered. I glanced at her, half smiling. That obvious? She kissed my collarbone. A little. We sat in silence for a moment. Not awkward, just heavy. Like we both knew this wasn't the kind of night that could be brushed off the next morning. I wasn't planning on, I began, but she cut me off gently. You don't have to explain. She sat up, pulling the blanket around her. In the dim light, her face looked softer, more real. Not the confident assistant who commanded meetings and closed contracts with laser precision. This was someone else. A version of her I hadn't seen until now. I knew something was going on with you, she said, eyes flicking to the empty glass beside me. You started coming in later, getting quiet, missing deadlines. Then tonight, your texts felt different. I rubbed a hand across my jaw. My wife asked for an open marriage. Avery blinked, then let out a dry laugh. Well, that explains a lot. She gave me a contract. Actually signed it before I even read it. Jesus, she muttered. That's bold. Yeah, I said, exhaling. She went on her first date tonight. I poured a drink, opened a spreadsheet, and there you were. Offering to help, she said with a sly smirk. And you weren't talking about formatting cells. She laughed again, pulling her hair out of the bun. It tumbled over her shoulders in a way that made me momentarily forget every reason I shouldn't be staring. She got up and walked to the kitchen, completely at ease in nothing but her underwear and my oversized button-down. I followed her, mostly because I didn't want the space between us to grow too long or too cold. "You hungry?" she asked, opening the fridge like she lived here. "You're raiding my kitchen now?" "I just delivered an emotional support orgasm," she teased, peering inside. "That earns me fridge privileges." I couldn't argue with that logic. Top shelf, a leftover Chinese. God, yes. She popped open the container and grabbed 2 forks, sitting back down at the counter. We ate cold sesame noodles under the flickering kitchen light, barefoot, half-dressed, entangled in something neither of us fully understood yet. She wiped her lips with a napkin and looked up. "So, what happens now?" I didn't have an answer. "This wasn't revenge," I said quietly, surprising myself. "I thought it would be. But it didn't feel like that with you." Her expression softened. "Same." I studied her, how her mouth curved when she smiled, how her eyes didn't flinch when I held her gaze. "I'm not looking to be someone's rebound, Jack," she said. "I don't do casual very well." "You think this is casual?" "I think you don't know what it is yet." I ran a hand through my hair. "Honestly, I don't." She nodded slowly. "Fair." She got up and walked toward the door, collecting her tank top and bag. The air shifted, like the night was ending, even if nothing else had. "I'll see you tomorrow," she asked, already turning the knob. "Yeah," I said, stepping closer. "And Avery." She looked up. Tonight wasn't a mistake. Her smile was faint, almost cautious. "Good. Because I'd hate to think I imagined all that heat between us." She leaned in, pressing a slow kiss to the corner of my mouth. Then she was gone. I stood there in the hallway for a while, the scent of her still clinging to the blanket on the couch, the echo of her presence humming in the silence she left behind. I looked down at my phone. No text from Dana. No missed calls. Just the empty, bitter confirmation that she hadn't thought about me at all while she was out. Somewhere across the city, she was probably wrapped around someone else. But tonight, I didn't feel like a husband left behind. I felt chosen. And that was the first night I realized I wanted more than just a distraction. I wanted her. The morning after, I expected regret. What I got was silence. No text from Avery. No flirty message. Not even a "hope you slept well." It made sense. We were adults. We knew how to compartmentalize, right? A night of release, nothing more. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about the way she kissed me, or how she fit against me like she'd been doing it for years. By the time I reached the office, coffee in hand and 3 hours of sleep under my belt, Avery was already there, typing away at her desk like nothing happened. Her hair was up, her blouse buttoned to the collar, her expression all business. "Morning," she said without looking up. I hesitated. "Morning." No smirk. No heat. Just clack, clack, clack from her keyboard. I went into my office, shut the door, and stared at the same email draft for 20 minutes. At 10:14, she buzzed in. "The Sanderson file needs your signature. Can I come in?" My heart skipped like a guilty teenager's. "Yeah." Doors open. She stepped in holding a manila folder, different than the one Dana had slid across our dining table, but with just as much weight. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. She handed me the file. "You missed this on Friday. It needs to go out before noon." "Thanks." Still no eye contact. She turned to leave, and I felt something in me ache. "Avery," I said. She paused, her hand still on the doorframe. Slowly, she turned. "That wasn't just physical," I said quietly. "No," she said, equally quiet. "It wasn't." We stared at each other across the desk. It was a professional space, but the energy in that room? Anything but. She stepped back in, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it. "Can we pretend it never happened?" she asked, eyes locking with mine. I stood slowly, walking around the desk, stopping just a few feet from her. "You want to pretend?" I said, "Can we?" Not do I want to. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because I don't." Her breath caught. "This is a terrible idea." "I know. We work together." "I know. You're married." "I signed a contract," I said. "Apparently that makes it okay." Her laugh was bitter, but it didn't stop her from stepping closer. "It's not okay, Jack." I nodded. "But it's real." She bit her lip, and for a second, I thought she'd leave. Instead, she pressed the folder against my chest and whispered, "I'll see you tonight." I didn't move until she was gone. The rest of the day dragged. Meetings bled into each other. I nodded, contributed, typed words I didn't believe. My mind was somewhere else, on the way her fingers gripped my wrist last night, the heat of her breath against my skin, the taste of her neck. I should have been focused on quarterly projections. I was thinking about how she moaned when I pushed her against the wall. By 6, the office had thinned. I stayed, eyes locked on my monitor, pretending to care about a spreadsheet I'd read 3 times already. When she knocked lightly and peeked in, I didn't even bother pretending. She held up a bottle of wine and a red folder with the word confidential in black sharpie. I figured we could talk. Go over this contract thing again. I smiled. Yours or Dana's? Mine's the better draft, she said. I cleared off the coffee table in my office lounge area. She poured 2 glasses and handed me the folder. Inside were documents from HR, mock policies, and an entirely unnecessary post-it note that said, Clause 1. No pretending last night didn't happen. She watched me read. So, what are we doing? I met her eyes. Writing our own terms. The rest happened fast. Faster than last time. Maybe because we didn't bother with pretense. She straddled my lap, wine forgotten. Her blouse fell open, her breath shallow against my cheek. I ran my hands over her thighs, up the smooth curve of her hips, fingers dragging over the lacy waistband of her underwear. You drive me crazy, she whispered. At work, all day, I think about you looking at me like this. I think about more than looking. Her mouth crushed mine, and then we were on the floor, tangled in reports and half-folded memos. She gasped when I pulled her panties aside, and I swallowed the sound like I'd earned it. It wasn't just lust. It was chemistry in its rawest form. Desperate, unapologetic. And somewhere between the desk and the couch, we forgot everything else, including why this started. Dana came home glowing. Not in the sun-kissed, happy wife kind of way. It was more satisfied, confident. That smug, post-sex aura she never used to wear around me, not even after we were first married. She dropped her keys on the counter and smiled like a cat that just finished licking the cream. Hey, she said casually, toeing off her heels. Hey, I replied, forcing my voice to stay even. Good night. She stretched, arms over her head, spine arching, hip shifting in that way I used to watch with hunger. Now it made my stomach twist. It was enlightening, she said, grabbing a glass and pouring herself the last of the red wine. We talked for hours. He's an architect. Does private eco-homes. You'd like him. I leaned against the doorway, arms folded. You going to tell me his name? She gave me a sideways look. That's not in the contract. My jaw tightened. Right. Of course. She walked past me, her perfume trailing like proof. It wasn't mine. Not the soft vanilla she used to wear. This was sharper, bolder. Foreign. I'm going to shower, she said. I nodded. As she disappeared down the hall, I grabbed the bourbon. No glass this time. Upstairs, the water ran. My wife was naked in our bathroom, washing off someone else's touch, and for once, the burn in my throat wasn't just from the whiskey. But I didn't text Avery. I didn't need to. The next day, she was waiting by my car when I stepped out of the building, a coffee in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other. What's that? I asked. Something personal. But first, caffeine. She handed me the coffee, black, exactly how I like it. We stood in the lot in silence, the sun dipping low behind the skyline. She looked up at me, eyes serious for once. I'm not playing a game here, Jack. I know. I don't want to be your escape. Or your proof of life. I hesitated. You're not. She handed me the envelope. Open it later. Back home, Dana was already gone again. Brunch with Elise, according to her text. She even added a wink emoji. The kind she used to send me when she wanted me to come home early and fuck her on the stairs. I didn't reply. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. Typed. Clean font. Precise margins. Very Avery. Jack. I don't know what this thing between us is. It started fast, hotter than it should have. But now it's in my head. Under my skin. And I don't want it to be something we pretend was just about timing or contracts or convenience. I want you to know me. Not just my body. Not just my smirk in the office. So here's something real. When I was 20, I was engaged. He cheated. I caught him in our apartment with someone I knew. Someone I trusted. Since then, I don't get involved. I fuck. I flirt. But I don't feel. Until now. Don't tell me what this is. Just don't lie to yourself about it either. A. I read it twice. Then again. I didn't expect to feel anything. But there it was, rising in my chest like warmth I hadn't let in for a long time. I called her. She answered before the second ring. Did you read it? Yeah. Silence. Then, do you still want me? More than I want revenge. That night, I invited her over. No sex. No wine. Just music playing low and takeout containers spread across the floor like a lazy Sunday. She curled up beside me on the couch, her legs tucked under a blanket that still smelled like her from last week. I used to want to get married, she said, dipping a spring roll into sauce. White dress, vows, matching coffee mugs. No? I don't know. All I see are people pretending to be happy, swapping partners instead of solving problems. Marriage doesn't break overnight, I said. It erodes, one small lie at a time. She looked at me. And what about us? What's this? I couldn't answer. I didn't want to ruin it with definitions. Instead, I leaned in and kissed her soft, slow, full of things I couldn't yet say. She melted into me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Dana. I wasn't thinking about getting even. I was thinking about her. It started with the scent. Not Avery's perfume, but hers. Dana's. I came home late. Not because of work. Not even because I was with Avery. I just didn't want to be home. Didn't want to pretend. Didn't want to see the woman who used to be my wife smile like she was suddenly whole without me. But I walked in anyway. That's what husbands do, even broken ones. The house was quiet. Dark, except for a sliver of bathroom light under the door at the end of the hall. Then I caught it. Something sharp, floral. Not hers. Dana never wore anything that heavy. This wasn't one of her usual scents. This was someone else's, and it clung to my shirt. I stood there in the hallway, frowning. It wasn't Avery's either. I pulled the shirt closer, sniffed the collar. Something musky. Vanilla mixed with sandalwood. Dana stepped out of the bathroom in a silk robe, drying her hair with a towel. She paused when she saw me. You're back, she said, almost surprised. Yeah, I live here. She gave a soft laugh and brushed past me toward the bedroom. I watched her go. You smell nice. She glanced over her shoulder. I tried something new. Why? No reason. She didn't ask where I'd been. Didn't ask who I was with. She just turned off the light and slipped into bed, facing away. And I stood in the hall, still holding a shirt that didn't smell like her, or me. The next morning, she was gone before I woke. By lunch, I was in Avery's office, door shut, blinds down. She leaned against her desk, arms folded across her chest. What's going on with you? She asked. I dropped the shirt onto her desk. Smell that. She raised an eyebrow but complied. Her nose wrinkled. That's not mine. No. I know. She handed it back. Your wife. She left it on me. On purpose, I think. Like some kind of marker. Avery blinked. Jesus. She knows. She doesn't know, no, I said. But she suspects. Then what are we doing, Jack? She asked quietly. Because I'm not trying to get caught sneaking out of meetings or explaining my perfume to your wife. I looked at her, really looked at her. Not just her figure, or the way her mouth curled when she was amused. I looked at the way she stood, still, guarded, like she was bracing for impact. I don't want you to be a secret, I said. Avery didn't respond right away. She crossed the room, sat down beside me on the small couch near the window, her fingers brushing mine. I need to ask you something, she whispered. Anything. Is this still about her? About getting back at Dana? I turned to face her. No. Her voice cracked just slightly. Because I can't be your rebound, Jack. I like you too much for that. I didn't say anything. I just kissed her. Not to seduce. Not to silence. Just to show her the only way I could. When we pulled apart, I said, You're not my revenge, Avery. You're the first thing in months that feels real. Later that night, as we lay tangled together on my couch, she whispered against my skin, I could fall for you, you know. And I felt it. That dangerous edge. That shift from control to vulnerability. The line where sex becomes something else. Real feelings. Real risk. You already have, I said, and kissed her before she could respond. The next morning, Dana was at the kitchen table sipping coffee, scrolling through her phone like a woman completely untouched by the storm she created. I poured myself a cup, then stood across from her, still shirtless, still sore from the night before. You were out late, she said, not looking up. So were you, I replied. She glanced at me. Are you seeing someone? The question was casual, almost bored. Are you? I asked you first. I smiled. You're not the only one exploring. Her expression flickered for a split second, just enough for me to catch it. Jealousy? Maybe. Or maybe just surprised that I'd finally grown a spine. Well, she said, standing up and placing her mug in the sink, just don't forget the rules. I haven't, I said. But maybe it's time to rewrite them. She turned, eyes narrowing slightly. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged. Means you're not the only one who wants more. She didn't respond. Just walked out, robe swaying like a flag of quiet surrender. And as I watched her go, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. Whatever this marriage was turning into, I wasn't going to be the passive one anymore. Not with Avery waiting. Not with something real finally blooming in a world full of fake. Rumors start like sparks, harmless at first, easy to ignore. But in an office full of dry paper and whispered secrets, they catch fast. It started with a look. A raised eyebrow from Lauren in accounting when Avery and I stepped into the conference room together. Then came the double take from Jared at the copier, the subtle smirk he wore when I passed by. And by Wednesday, 2 interns actually stopped talking when I entered the break room, like high schoolers who'd just seen their principal with lipstick on his collar. I wasn't stupid. I knew what it looked like. Late meetings behind closed doors. Whispered exchanges. The casual touches that weren't quite professional. We weren't hiding it as well as we thought. But the problem wasn't just perception, it was jealousy. Kevin, mid-30s. Always dressed like he was gunning for CFO. Used to date Avery before she worked here, or so the rumors went. He watched her now with a bitterness that told me whatever they had didn't end clean. I'd keep it in your pants if I were you, he muttered one afternoon as we passed in the hall. I stopped, turned. You say something? He smirked. Just saying HR doesn't take kindly to affairs between managers and subordinates, especially when there's favoritism involved. The word hit harder than I expected. Favoritism. Like what Avery and I had was strategic. Transactional. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I just kept walking. But the seed was planted. Later that day, Avery barged into my office with flushed cheeks and fire in her eyes. Kevin just asked if I'd slept my way into getting the Ferguson account. I stood up so fast my chair rocked back. He said it loud, Jack. In the middle of the bullpen. Did you report it? No, she snapped. Because that would just confirm it in everyone's minds. You know how it works here. Whisper campaigns are stronger than policy manuals. I ran a hand through my hair. I'll handle it. She grabbed my wrist. No, you won't. You'll only make it worse. This is my fight. There was something in her voice, tired and sharp and proud. I won't be the girl who needed you to defend her, she said quietly. You don't need me, but I'm here. She softened then. I know. That night, I didn't go home. Dana texted around 7:30. Don't forget Max's practice tomorrow. And your dentist at 2. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, then turned my phone off. Avery's apartment was small but warm, plants in the window, records stacked on shelves, a cat named Linus that hated me on principle. We ate takeout on the floor again, surrounded by the smell of curry and the sound of Miles Davis playing low in the background. I didn't think this would get messy, she said between bites. I didn't think this would get real. She looked at me. It's always been real. That's the problem. I reached out, brushing rice from her lip. You think this ends badly? I think it ends honestly, she said. And that's almost the same thing. I wanted to tell her I was falling for her. That somewhere between the texts and the wine and the unbuttoned shirts, she stopped being a distraction and became the person I needed most. But I didn't say it, because I was still married. Even if that marriage had become a negotiation built on silence and carefully signed betrayals. When I got home the next morning, Dana was in the kitchen, leggings, sports bra, yoga mat rolled up by the door. Good night? She asked, sipping green juice. Productive, I said. She smiled. Me too. I stared. Was it your architect again? She tilted her head. Actually, no. I met someone new. At the studio. My stomach twisted. At yoga. She shrugged. He's flexible. I wanted to laugh. Or break something. But I just nodded. So that's what we're doing now? I asked. Isn't this what you wanted? No, I said. It's what you pitched. She walked over, slow and smug, and placed her hand on my chest. You're not the only one who's desirable, Jack. I stepped back. You think this is a competition? I think I've been winning it for a while. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about openness anymore. It was war. She was fucking to prove a point. I was falling in love with the woman who reminded me I had value. And now the boundaries were blurred, the masks were cracking, and our agreement had mutated into something uglier than either of us expected. The only rule left? There were no rules. We weren't being careful anymore. We weren't pretending it was a secret, or that we didn't want to be caught. The thrill of Avery's skin against mine had become something I needed, not as revenge, but as oxygen. Something that made me feel alive in a house that had started to feel like a museum of failure. And yet, I still didn't expect the door to swing open like that. We were in the apartment. Mine and Dana's. Avery's back was against the kitchen counter, her blouse already half unbuttoned. I just pressed my lips to her collarbone when the door cracked open with that distinct, echoing sound that made your blood go cold. Dana, home early, and walking into her own custom-built nightmare. I heard the sharp intake of breath before I turned. She stood in the doorway, yoga mat still in hand, frozen like someone had paused her mid-scene. Her eyes darted from Avery's open shirt to my hand still at her waist. The silence was surgical, a blade slicing through whatever fiction we'd all agreed to live in. Then, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Avery moved first, pulling away, adjusting her blouse with trembling fingers. Dana dropped the mat with a heavy thud. This is what we're doing now, she spat. In the house we built together? On the goddamn marble counters I picked out. I stepped forward. You want to talk about lines crossed? Let's talk about your Thursday nights. And your architect. And yoga boy, or whatever he is. We had rules, Jack, she shouted, hands flailing in disbelief. We agreed. No one in the house. No emotional attachments. No falling for the rebound. You wrote those rules, I said, voice low. You pitched this. You made the contract. And you broke it. I laughed, bitter. No. I rewrote it. I walked over to the side table and pulled open the drawer where I'd hidden the updated version. I drafted it last week, the night after Avery told me she could fall for me. I hadn't had the guts to give it to Dana, until now. I slapped it onto the counter between us. Read it. She glanced at the bold title. Revised Agreement. Termination of Open Marriage Contract. And under it, 2 options. Mutual separation. Initiate divorce proceedings. Is this a joke? She hissed. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Her face, still beautiful, but harder now. Not the Dana I married. Not the woman who used to tuck notes in my briefcase. This was someone else. Someone who stopped asking if I was okay long ago. No, I said. This is the first honest thing we've put between us in months. She looked at Avery, still silent, still frozen, and sneered. You really think this is better? That she's better? No, I said quietly. But we're not better. We're done. The words surprised even me. They felt final in a way nothing else had. No rage. No breakdown. Just the exhausted truth. Dana stared at the paper like it was written in another language. You're making a huge mistake, she whispered. I already did, I said. I stayed too long. Avery moved then, stepping toward the door. I should go. No, I interrupted. Stay. Dana scoffed. Wow, you really traded me for your assistant. No, I said again. I found someone who listens. Who cares? Who sees me? Dana blinked, like she hadn't expected me to hit back with honesty. Like I'd always been the one to apologize first, to make peace, to fold. Not anymore. Keep the house, I added. You always loved the countertops. I walked past her toward the door, taking Avery's hand in mine. Dana didn't stop me. She just stood there, surrounded by everything she thought she could control, watching it slip through her manicured fingers. As we stepped into the hallway, I felt it, that strange, unshackled lightness in my chest. Avery squeezed my hand. You okay? No, I said, but I'm closer than I've been in a long time. And I didn't look back. The papers were signed on a Tuesday. No courtroom drama. No last-minute pleas. Just ink on paper and the awkward silence of a notary whose job it was to witness the end of 17 years. Dana didn't cry. Neither did I. She wore her favorite blazer, the navy one she used to pair with her pearls when we'd go to fundraisers. I wore a black sweater Avery liked, said it made me look younger, less tired. When the notary said, congratulations, like this was a real estate deal or some kind of twisted milestone, Dana gave a tight smile. I gave none. Afterward, we stood outside the building for a moment, just 2 people who used to be everything. She looked at me, really looked at me. You know this isn't how I thought we'd end. I know. Her eyes were softer than they'd been in months. Tired. Not angry. Just done. Was she worth it? She asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. She gave a slow nod, like she'd already known. Take care of yourself, Jack. You too. And that was it. No hug. No promises to keep in touch. Just 2 people walking in opposite directions, untethered. I slept at Avery's that night. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. There was no celebration. No wine. Just a warm apartment that smelled like cinnamon and paper and her shampoo. Her cat, Linus, curled up at my feet like he'd finally decided I wasn't going to leave. Avery handed me a slice of pizza and a beer. We sat on the couch, her legs tucked under mine. Signed? She asked. Signed. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. How does it feel? Empty, I said truthfully. But not bad. Good kind of empty? Like a cleared room. Like I can finally breathe. She nodded. That's how it should feel. We didn't talk much after that. Just soft conversation, background music, and the rustle of sheets as we crawled into bed. That night, I didn't have sex with her. We didn't need to. Instead, I pulled her close, wrapped an arm around her waist, and fell asleep to the rhythm of her breath-steady, real, grounding. In the morning, she handed me coffee in a chipped ceramic mug and kissed me slow, like there was no clock ticking, no appointment looming, no divorce in the rearview. Just us. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. A few days later, I visited the apartment Dana and I used to share. I came to collect the last of my things, a box of old photos, a tool set I'd almost forgotten, the leather-bound journal I hadn't written in since before the marriage cracked. The house was clean, empty in the wrong ways. Her scent was gone, but so was mine. No echoes of arguments. No reminders of movie nights or Sunday pancakes. Just walls. I stood in the kitchen, hand on the marble counter, remembering how much she obsessed over the color. And then I walked out. No nostalgia. No lingering. Just closure. Back at Avery's, the windows were open. Spring air spilled in, fresh and alive. She stood barefoot in the kitchen, humming some indie song I didn't recognize. She glanced up when I entered and smiled. You look lighter, she said. I feel it. She handed me a clipboard. What's this? I asked. Grocery list. We're out of coffee. I laughed, took the pen, and signed my name at the bottom. There, I said. Now we're official. Officially out of coffee, she smirked. And then she kissed me. No fire. No desperation. Just home. 6 months later, I no longer check my phone at 2 a.m. expecting some crisis, some cold silence from the other side of the bed. I don't wonder where Dana is or who she's with. I don't wake up sweating under sheets that smell like someone else's secrets. I wake up with Avery. She sleeps with her arms slung across my chest, hair tangled on the pillow, her cat curled at our feet like a reluctant chaperone. Mornings are slow, messy, perfect. She makes the worst scrambled eggs I've ever had, and I eat them like they're gourmet. She drinks her coffee black, but loads mine with oat milk and 2 spoons of sugar, claims I'm still soft on the inside. She's not wrong. Our apartment is small. A 1-bedroom corner unit with creaky floors and a leaky faucet. But it's ours. We painted the walls ourselves, muted green in the kitchen, slate blue in the bedroom. We argued over rug patterns and finally settled on one we both hate slightly less than the rest. The place smells like lavender, paperbacks, and takeout. It's not perfect. It's real. At the office, things have evened out. Kevin eventually backed off after Avery threatened legal action. HR sent around a passive-aggressive memo on appropriate workplace relationships, and everyone pretended not to know who it was aimed at. I didn't care. Still don't. Because I no longer need to keep things hidden. We work well together. We always have. But now, there's something stronger under it. Trust, stability, affection that doesn't demand proof every 5 minutes. She still teases me during meetings. I still watch her when she's not looking. At night, we talk about everything. Her childhood. My kids. The first time she saw me in the office and thought I looked like a very tired James Bond. She tells me she's not sure about marriage, and I tell her I'm not sure about anything, but I know I want to wake up next to her tomorrow, and the day after that, and the one after that. Dana texts me every now and then. Not about us. Not anymore. Just small things. Max made the team. Did you see Ellie's science fair project? Your sister's birthday is next week. Want me to remind her? She doesn't say she regrets it. Not directly. But sometimes the emojis say more than the words do. I don't answer most of the time. I used to feel guilty about that. I don't anymore. Because some messages don't need replies. Some people are meant to be chapters, not endings. Last week, Avery walked into the living room with a small envelope in her hand. What's this? I asked. She grinned. Open it. Inside was a key. No tag, no note. I looked up at her. I know you already live here, she said. But I want you to feel like you do. I kissed her before I said anything. Later that night, we laid in bed, limbs tangled, her head on my chest. I don't need a ceremony, I said quietly. Or a ring. But if this is what forever feels like, I'll take it. She didn't say anything right away. Then she whispered, same. And that was it. No declarations. No promises carved in stone. Just two people who chose each other. Every day. Signed. Sealed. Delivered. The best thing I ever received wasn't revenge. It was Avery. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back. I'm just holding on. And walking forward. Together.